there's something profoundly unfair that very few dare to admit. You give everything, your time, your tenderness, your attention, and instead of drawing closer, he grows cold. He pulls away. He treats you as if you're replaceable, as if you don't matter, and the more love you give, the more invisible you become. Sound familiar? You tried to be the perfect woman, understanding, passionate. You gave him more chances than anyone deserves. You justified his silences. You translated his indifference as stress or confusion. You elevated crumbs as if they were emotional feasts. And still, nothing. He always seems on the verge of giving himself, but never does. You're not crazy. It's not that you're not enough. What's happening is that you're up against a silent mechanism within every man, the male ego, a delicate but devastating force that doesn't respond to what you do, but to what you manage to make him feel without lifting a finger. That's the truth that will shatter your perspective today. And the most unsettling part, you already felt it. It's just that no one had ever explained it like this. A man's ego isn't moved by sweet words or desperate efforts to please him. It doesn't respond to logic or the obvious. It reacts, almost like a primitive instinct, to the emotions you stir within him. If you manage to trigger certain invisible levers inside him, if you understand how his internal mechanism works, you can completely transform the way he sees you. Not from neediness, but from a presence so powerful that, without even trying, you make him want you with a force that overwhelms him. You make him think of you for no reason. You make him seek you without knowing why. And no, this isn't about manipulation. It's awareness. It's emotional intelligence applied from a place of personal strength, not from lack. It's knowing how the male mind works, not to control him, but to stop being controlled. Because a truly confident woman doesn't chase. She attracts. She doesn't crave attention. She leaves a mark. The emotional structure of men is different from that of women. While many women seek to be valued for what they build, men, deep down, want to be chosen for what they represent. They want to feel unique, exclusively desired, and most of all, irreplaceable. Their self-image depends on feeling validated, not just once, but repeatedly. And in that pursuit, they often crave emotional control of the dynamic, even if they never admit it. Inside, they still carry an insecure child who needs to be seen. That child lives in the body of an adult who projects confidence. And every time you show admiration or give your energy without limit, that child inflates. His ego grows. But with every predictable gesture, with every easily anticipated reaction, the game loses meaning for him. He loses desire. Because in his inner world, what is given without challenge is not valued. And that's exactly where the weak point lies, the one very few women have learned to detect. What appears to be strength in him, his indifference, his calculated attitude, his emotional control, is actually a facade. If you have enough inner clarity to cut off the constant supply of validation he expects as routine, if you become an unpredictable presence instead of his automatic refuge, then something inside him begins to break down. You shut off the mirror, you deny him emotional fuel, and that sudden darkness, that lack of constant reflection, unsettles him. It forces him to truly look at himself. It confronts him, and there, in that emotional void you strategically left, a response he can't control is triggered. The urgent need to win back what he believes he's lost, and he doesn't know how. Every time you chase after his silence, try to explain yourself, insist on reminding him how much you care. All you do is reinforce his sense of power. You feed his ego with every word born of urgency, and an inflated ego, hear this clearly, does not know how to love. It only gets drunk on the idea of control. It's an emotional addiction. It gets used to seeing you surrender, to feeling it can sway your emotions at will. but it's never satisfied, and it never respects you more because of it. On the contrary, the more you elevate his pedestal, the less he sees you as an equal. You've already shown him you're willing to give yourself even when he's barely present. You gave him permission not to try. And that's the perfect formula for him to stop valuing you. That's why you need to break that cycle. Leave behind the role of the one begging for attention and become the one who is desired without asking for it. How do you change this dynamic? How do you stop being the one who chases and become the one who's chased? With 3 infallible tools: limited presence, conscious silence, and calculated distance. Because even if you've been told men want peace, the truth is they get emotionally hooked on what pulls them out of their comfort zone. They don't obsess over what's safe. They obsess over what's uncertain. They don't fall in love with what's easy to predict. They get tangled up in what they can't fully decipher. Think about it. How many times have you seen a man completely smitten with a woman who barely pays him attention, while another, ready to give him everything, is completely ignored? It's not a coincidence. It's not cruelty. It's that his instinct associates difficulty with value. His archaic mind interprets challenge as worth. And if there's no challenge, there's no conquest. This isn't about manipulation or emotional cruelty. It's not about playing dirty. I'm talking about a precise emotional strategy, breaking his expectations. If he pulls away and you, instead of panicking, simply do the same with calm, the calm of someone who doesn't need to beg for anyone, something becomes disordered in his mind. And that's when everything shifts. He starts to question. He stops. His confidence wavers. What happened? Did she disconnect? Is she no longer thinking about me? It unsettles him not to see you react the way you used to. And that hurts him more than any reproach, because now, for the first time, he feels he could lose you and didn't see it coming. And that, for an ego used to having the upper hand, is unbearable. Every man, even the coldest one, wants to feel chosen. Not admired from afar, but deliberately desired. But there's an invisible line that turns that desire into indifference, the moment he senses he already has you for sure. When your presence feels like a given and not a choice, he loses the urge to pursue. What arrives effortlessly isn't valued. And when you act as if he's a certainty, his instinct stops investing. Here's the silent mistake that changes everything. Thinking that always being available is a sign of love. It's not. To him, it's routine, predictability, and constant security, paradoxically, kills desire. Because desire doesn't grow where everything is guaranteed. It ignites where something could be lost. So, what's the balance point? Show interest, yes, but with surgical precision. Let him know you like him, but not that you depend on him, that he inspires you, but doesn't define you. If things start getting intense, don't cling. Be the one to end the conversation at its peak. Withdraw at the climax. Leave a scene unfinished, an emotion unresolved. That's the exact formula to trigger his need to come back. Don't give him control over the pace. Don't react to his availability. You set the rhythm. You decide when you're present. Picture this. He sends you a vague message, out of context, maybe just to see if he can still stir your emotions. Most fall into the trap. They respond anxiously, seek meaning, demand clarity. But a woman with emotional mastery doesn't play that game. She doesn't react out of fear of emptiness. She responds, if she responds at all, with brevity, neutrality, with a kind of indifference that doesn't humiliate, but leaves a mark. Because she's not acting from pride, but from inner strength. And that unexpected response, or non-response, disarms his entire strategy. He expected restlessness. He got composure. He expected you to rush to validate his presence, but you didn't even flinch. You didn't take the bait, and that simple fact can dismantle more than 1,000 arguments, because it confronts him with something he doesn't know how to handle, losing emotional control over you. This is where one of the most silent and devastating weapons you can use comes into play: your measured absence. Not as punishment, as a statement. Want to occupy his mind? Be silent when he expects your voice. Don't explain what doesn't need explaining. Don't chase what pulls away. Simply withdraw with a calm so powerful that it leaves only one question spinning in his head: what changed? And that question is the beginning of his obsession. The power of silence isn't in what you withhold, but in what it triggers. When he's grown used to your words, your instant replies, your steady presence, your sudden withdrawal creates an unbearable void. And in that void, his certainties dissolve. That's where real desire is born. Because what truly destabilizes a man is not losing you physically. It's not knowing whether you still exist emotionally in his world. That invisible crack, that doubt not caused by him, but created by your emotional strength, throws him into a crisis. And that crisis sparks an urgent need to reconnect. The male ego can withstand 1,000 pleas. It can ignore declarations of love. But it cannot bear the doubt of not having you. It can't tolerate the emptiness you create when you stop trying. When you're no longer there to fight or explain. When simply you're no longer there. That's the energy you must cultivate. Calm firmness. A presence that doesn't beg. A woman who doesn't kneel before someone else's indifference because her world doesn't revolve around male validation. Your strength doesn't need to shout. Your power lies in how you occupy your space, even when you choose not to occupy his. When you walk through life with that clarity, something visceral is triggered in a man's mind. Without knowing how, he senses he's in front of a different kind of woman. One who can't be molded. One who can't be read. One who doesn't give herself out of habit. And believe me, men don't become obsessed with those who give unconditional love out of servitude. They become obsessed with those they can't categorize, with those who are priceless, with those who, if not earned, vanish. The most silent yet costly mistake you can make is trying to prove you're the best option. When you feel the urge to explain your worth, to convince him that you know how to love, that you would be there for him, what you're really showing isn't love, it's need. And neediness has a scent that's detectable from afar. He doesn't hear your words, he senses your energy. And if that energy comes from lack, from see me, choose me, stay, his ego inflates, but his desire fades. No matter how noble your intention is, when you place yourself in the role of someone waiting to be acknowledged, you're handing over your power. You're giving him the keys to your worth. And he, even unintentionally, will start to see you as something guaranteed, static, available, and therefore dispensable. What a man truly values isn't what's given without conditions. It's what he can't have without effort. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding that respect isn't demanded. It's projected. That admiration isn't begged for, it's evoked. And that desire isn't maintained through constant presence, but through a subtle distance that forces him to wake up. When he starts to notice your gaze is no longer fixed on his world, something inside him destabilizes. You're no longer the woman who waits, who explains herself, who stays even when it hurts. Now, you're a force that moves on its own, a life in motion, an energy that multiplies without his permission. That's what really hurts. Not your absence, your expansion without him. The real impact doesn't come from your silence, but from the contrast. Yesterday, you were all his. Today, you are all yours. You don't need to say it. It's enough that he realizes your steps no longer orbit his shadow. that you didn't stop, that you bloomed. And when that happens, when he sees her shine without him, the male ego collapses. Not out of love, but out of identity. Because it's hard for him to accept that someone who once admired him now no longer needs him. That someone who once waited no longer even considers him. Don't confront him. Don't explain. Don't demand. Live. Let him find out you're going out. Not because you told him, but because it shows that you're surrounding yourself with new experiences, not out of revenge, but from instinct. That you're nurturing your body, your mind, your spirit, not to draw him back, but because you've remembered you deserve your own attention too. Make yourself your absolute priority. Turn your personal growth into a silent response to everything that didn't work. Each day you choose to evolve. You step further away from the woman who settled for crumbs and closer to the woman who doesn't wait to be seen because she's become light. And when that transformation is real, not faked, not strategic, but lived, something inevitable happens. He feels it. Even if he doesn't say it, even if he hides it, his mind starts chasing an image he no longer possesses. His bruised ego can't bear not being the center. And he begins to search for reasons, for traces, for doors. But he no longer defines your worth, because your new version no longer responds to his call, no longer needs his validation to feel enough, no longer sees him as a loss, but as a closed chapter. And from that level of clarity, from that emotional height, his obsession can't reach you. He's no longer your destiny. Just a sign of how far you've come. All dynamics, even the most intense ones, eventually fall into patterns. What was once fire becomes choreography. He acts, you respond, he withdraws, you chase. And so, without realizing it, the relationship becomes a monotonous loop, rehearsed, predictable, devoid of mystery. Your job isn't to keep the routine alive. Your task is to break it with dignity. Break it without announcements, without warnings, without drama. Simply stop keeping pace. Is he absent? Don't respond with anxiety. Don't act from fear of losing him. Change the focus. Return to yourself. Does he send mixed signals or try to provoke jealousy? See them for what they are. Noise without substance. You don't need to confront him. You just need not to move. Don't play the role he expects. Does he try to manipulate your emotions to measure your devotion? Don't explain. Don't justify your distance. Don't enter his game. Because the exact moment you stop participating in the choreography, he loses the script. And that's where everything changes. You disarm him not with words, but with silence. Not with confrontations, but with unshakable serenity. Then, the power shifts. Not by force, but because you no longer need to control anything, because you're no longer available for the game. And that disorients him more than any reproach. When you stop needing external validation like oxygen, something inside you reorganizes. Something deep settles. You no longer act to please, nor do you mold yourself to fit. Your energy centers on the only thing you truly control. Your life, your mind, your evolution. And that's where something happens that no strategy can fake. You become the woman who doesn't hold back, but also isn't easily claimed, who doesn't beg, but isn't closed off, who doesn't shout what she feels, but radiates it. From that new frequency, he begins to perceive you differently, not as an object of desire, but as an ungraspable presence. He can't predict you, he can't read you, and that disorientation pulls him in, because he's never felt himself lose control with such elegance. He's never felt someone slip away without saying goodbye. And that, darling, is something he won't forget. You become a constant without presence, a living memory, a question he can't answer. Not because you're full of pride, but because you stopped putting him at the center of your universe. because you became the axis of your own world. You don't need to explain what you're doing, just do it. You don't need to prove you're moving on, just move. Your transformation doesn't need an announcement. It manifests. Your evolution doesn't require witnesses. It's simply felt. And the most powerful thing of all is this: when you truly reach that place within yourself, where you no longer expect anyone to save you, when your fulfillment no longer depends on his messages or his interest, he notices. His once comfortable mind goes into conflict. He doesn't understand how he lost access. He doesn't understand how he went from being essential to being unnecessary. That is the paradox that disarms him. And so he starts looking for you, not out of habit but out of urgency. He doesn't have you anymore, and that's why he wants you. But you're no longer the same. Now it's you who observes from a higher ground. Now it's you who chooses from a different place, because something in you has changed forever. And here's the key point. When you reach this level of inner wholeness, it no longer matters whether he comes back or not, because you've stopped measuring your worth by his attention. You've stopped needing to be chosen, because you've already chosen yourself. That's true power, the kind that isn't about controlling someone else, but about freeing yourself. The kind that doesn't seek external answers because it stands on its own. It's the power of having broken away from the old, without looking back. You don't need to fill the silence with justifications. You don't need to explain why you no longer chase. You don't need revenge, nor do you have anything to prove. Life will take care of that. And if he returns, let it be with clarity, with intention, with respect. And even then, it will be your decision. Because now you understand that true desire is born when someone realizes they could lose what they never truly understood. And you, with your mystery intact and your energy focused, are exactly that. A woman who can no longer be won with words, because she built herself with actions.
And at that new level, his obsession is no longer your goal.
It's just the echo of what you were able to awaken and let go.